Hello, and I'm Mark, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Mark.
First, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Indiana for having this convention, and it's an honor to be here this weekend. I really didn't know I was going to speak today. It was kind of a shock. This young lady was running around outside looking for Mark K. I said, "That's me." She said, "You're supposed to be down in the Grieving speaking." So I'm not prepared to speak, but I'll do the best I can. Grievance, it's pretty amazing. I just went through a really hard time of grievance and a loss a few months ago, and by the grace of God, I didn't use through it. And grieving comes, it has certain different aspects. The first part of my grievance, was I was in shock. I couldn't believe this was happening. I was just like stunned. My fiance left me, and I really cared about her. I loved her with all my heart, and I was in shock probably for a good week or two. I just couldn't believe it was happening, and and then. After I got over initial shock, it was like the guilt came in fact. What did I do? If I would have did this, I couldn't comprehend, why she was leaving. Blaming myself. It was just my mind was really going 100 miles an hour. Trying to figure out, if I would have did this different, or if I would have done this different, maybe she would still be around. And and then there was lots and lots of tears. I cried myself to sleep probably for a good month. At work, in the car, at meetings. The meetings was a real important part of my grievance. Being around fellow addicts, showing me that unconditional love, and telling me just keep coming back and everything will be all right. I guess the amazing part of my grievance is that I never thought about using, but I did think about suicide, and I don't know where that came from, because I never thought about suicide when I was using, and but I kept on coming around and kept on sharing about it, and it got a little better, and I guess, there was denials in that grievance too, that again, I can't believe, this is not true. Just the hard, heavy denial. I just couldn't accept it, that she was gone, and that was really hard on me, and everybody just kept on telling me, that I was in denial, that I was codependent towards her, and when she left, she told me it wasn't my fault. Why she was leaving. She had to do her own thing, and I just kept on, blaming myself, and denying that she was gone, and we lived together in the same house, and for a long time, the denial kept me from really doing anything in the house, because I wanted everything the way it was when she was there. I didn't want to rearrange or there was children involved, and he had toys. Some of the toys were still at the house, and I just left them right there. And it was like that she was there, but she was just gone on vacation or something, and I know it was really messing me up, and I finally gave in and started doing what everybody told me to do, and that was to get with my higher power and pray over it. and which I did, and I started doing it on a daily basis, and actually getting on my knees. Because sometimes I just pray when I'm laying in bed, but I was putting a little extra effort because I couldn't handle the way I felt, and I was miserable, and I didn't want to live like that, and so I just started I praying a lot, and and I was just asking my higher power to help me through the times, give me strength and courage, just the basic prayers. Never once did I ever pray for her to come home, even though I wanted her to come home. And I tried to give my will to my higher power the best I could. There was days I took it back, but I know I'm not perfect, and I never will be. And I just, praying really helped me through my grievance, and talking to other addicts. Those were probably the main two things that kept me, from going out and using or killing myself. I never gave up on her though. It was hard. It was hard to let go completely, even though I prayed about it, trying to let go, and I kept persistence, and love is persistence, the caring and about somebody, and the being able to forgive her for what she did, because to me, I'm trying to be a different person today, and I'm trying to change, and I know I'm not going to change overnight, and I never gave up on her, and I accepted the fact that she had to do what she had to do, and she went her way, and I stayed where I was at, and but it's amazing, because through all that, now I'm rejoicing because she's back in my life again today, and I don't, some people say that, their higher power tests them. I don't believe that. I believe there was a reason for what happened, and I don't understand or know what the reason is, but I really don't have a lot on grievance. I mean, just, basically what I shared, that's how I felt. I had the denial part, I had the acceptance, that was hard, and the shock, and a lot of crying, but like I said, the higher power thing really helped me, and I know there's going to be other losses in my life, and my therapist told me, I did start going back to my therapist too about it, and he told me there's, you're going to have sorrow, you're going to have happiness in your life, no matter, it's always going to be there, because if you didn't have grievance and sorrow, you wouldn't be able to enjoy the happy part. If you were happy all the time, you wouldn't be grateful for when you do, when it does come into your life. So I guess just living life on life's terms, is new for all of us, and it's a learning process. It's amazing how emotions come out, when you're clean, and because when we were using drugs, we kept on pushing down those emotions, and now once we're clean, they pop out, and they can come out at any time, and that's a gift, I believe, from my higher power, is to have emotions, and I don't always like them, but I don't know. I'm grateful for NA today, and I'm going to keep coming back. I wish I had more to share about it, but I really don't. All I know is no matter what happens, you don't have to use. No matter how bad it is. I mean, this fellowship is amazing. That's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Is the second speaker here, Sherry? Okay. Before we open this up to sharing, I need to remind everyone that we are being taped. So if you wish to not be taped, please let me know so we can stop the tape. Would anyone like to come up here and share about grieving?
My name is John. I'm at it.
Hey, John.
Grieving. Since I've been in the fellowship, I lost my grandmother, and I don't know if I went through this grieving process or not, but I'd like to thank God and you people for helping me not to use, because I had a reservation that, if she did die, that I was going to use, because I just thought I couldn't go on without her, because she raised me. She was just like my mother. And all the time through my addiction, when I didn't see any hope or any chance for me to ever become anybody, she had never lost hope in me, and I never could understand what she's seen in me, and today I still don't accept the fact that she's dead, because wherever I go, I take her with me, because just being a big part of my life. And thanks to you people and God again, I was able to, at the funeral, I was able to be there for my family, and I was able to help them. And I have 2 families today, and a lot of people from the fellowship that didn't even know my grandmother were there for me to give me support. And, it really helped. And I thought I was going to go through a lot more changes, but for me, that's a growing process. I didn't do all those things that I had planned, because I asked people how, they had got through deaths. They explained to me, and I'm working on it, and I pray a lot. And I'm accepting the fact. And we just lost, I'm also from Detroit. We just lost a member, Mike B., who was a real close friend to me. And, I carry him around with me, too. And he died of cancer. And before he died, he had turned his life over to Jesus. And he wasn't scared to die, and I'm learning through this grieving process, that all I have is today, and I try to live in today. And I don't have a whole lot to say on this either, except, but thanks to you people, I'm able to accept the fact, that people will die in my family and in this fellowship, and I don't have to get all crazy about it and go out and use, and I wanted to say, using wasn't an option anymore, but using definitely is an option, because it doesn't matter how much clean time you have. When things come up still to this day, the first thing I think about is using, and I thought I was farther along in my program than that, and today only because of you people, it's just a thought. Thanks.
Anyone else want to share?
Hey family, my name's Denise and I'm an addict.
Hi, Denise.
Man. Thank you, Johnny. Right now I'm going through the grieving process myself, and I'm having a real hard time with it. And my son is eluding the police and has left state, and he's wanted, and they're watching my house, and my phones seem like they're tapped. And last week they were looking in my windows at me, shit that happened to me in my addiction when I was a dope dealer for 25 years. You know, when they looked in my windows, I knew what they were looking for back then. But when it happens to you when you're clean and you're sitting at home watching a movie on your couch and you know that you've been doing right by the law, it's a totally different circumstance and feeling. It's a real shit feeling that, you know, I've been abiding, I've been a good law-paying taxpayer, you know, and here I got two cops standing on my back porch peeking in on my windows. And my son has left state, and I don't know if he's alive, dead, if he's okay. And I have to be okay with that every day and get acceptance. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I was a drug dealer for 25 years, so my son is only doing what he has learned by product of me, in my addiction, in my time, you know, bringing him up. And I was clean for the last 9 years of his life, so he does know what it is to be clean, to live drug-free and alcohol-free, and to work a program and go to meetings. And I had him going to NA just before he took off. And working through the grieving process, you know, first you get really angry for me, and I try and blame my fiance and try and blame his father, and I just try to blame the system. And you know, I got real angry at the cops. They were calling me at work. They're investigators wanting to pull me in like I'm going to turn my son in. They're running newspaper ads saying he's wanted for rape, you know, with my son's name and picture and everything, and it just tears your heart out, you know, when friends are coming up to you in a meeting and they are giving you support because they know that you're hurting. It's really hard. The only thing I do today is to go to meetings and I call my sponsor and I pray for him, and I ask everybody in the fellowship to pray for him, and I just got to trust that he's okay and that God will take care of him. And it's like people always say God has a sense of humor, and I have to believe that, you know, because right now my plate is so full that I'm in therapy also. And I'm in a women's group, the 12 steps through a woman's eyes, and I went to a psychiatrist for the first time in my recovery in 9 years and sat down in his office because I thought that maybe this guy might have the answer that I couldn't find in all these other things, you know, because I'm looking for that answer that'll give me serenity, that'll get me through life without using, without killing somebody, or without doing something stupid, because all that comes into play when you're all fucked up. It comes into play even though you don't want it to. It doesn't matter what kind of program or how well you work it. I sponsor people. I do open talks at treatment centers, at hospitals and institutions. I give of myself 24/7. I stay involved in meetings. I work the NA program as you people have taught it to me and told me to work it, but that doesn't stop the process in my head because I am my own worst enemy. And when I go inside there, I can make a mountain out of a molehill. I can take a situation and blow it out of proportion and think, yeah, he's lying dead in a ditch somewhere, you know. I'll tell you one thing that it has made me realize is what I put my family through and what I did to my folks and my addiction. You know, I never thought anything about it, never took the time to realize the pain and the suffering and the worrying that I put them through until I, too, had to pace that rug and had to feel those feelings and had to actually digest it and be with it and know that what comes around goes around, and it's true, whether you want to believe it or not. Somewhere along the line, what you give out is what you'll take in, and I've had it happen in my life. And I went up north 6 weeks ago and I had my cards read by someone in the fellowship, you know, and I don't believe in all that. And she told me that someone real close to me was going to die and it was going to make a huge impact on my life. And I've buried a lot of people in NA in 9 years, I kid you not. People I love, people that my best friend had 7 children and died of heroin addiction. I mean, there's just been so many in 9 years. You see a lot of the revolving door, and some of us have to die for others of us to live, and it is so true. And all of a sudden, my stepmother, who is very, very close to me, she's dying of cancer rapidly. So rapidly, I can't even comprehend one step to the next. And I can't stop it, and I got to learn acceptance. And I'm having a real hard time. You know. I'm in school right now, and I'm trying to get my life together, and I'm trying to become goals that I set for myself. I'm trying to better myself as a human being. It just seems like God keeps giving me more and more things to test me to see just how much I want this recovery and just how much I want to stay clean. Because I'll tell you, I'll be honest, the monkeys on my back are heavy. And it's not that I'm not working a program or calling my sponsor. It's not that I'm not sharing openly and honestly, because this is like as raw as you can get right here, babe. You know, I just know that it'll pass. And as long as I don't use and don't think that I don't want to use through this, because I do, because the feelings are so strong and so overwhelming, I just want to numb them out. And I know I can do that out there. I know that it's just a walk away. I have a good friend out researching for me. You know, he went out a couple of weeks ago, and he's out there, and I pray for him every day, and I hope I don't have to go to his funeral real soon. But it's like he's keeping me in here, knowing he's out there, knowing that I could die too. And I'm sure me being dead isn't going to help my son, or me being out there doing whatever it is I do in my ripping and running and drugging. It's not going to help Brandon at all. You know, and it gets hard because everywhere I go and everywhere I see, first thing out of somebody's mouth is, how's your son? Have you heard from him? Is he okay? And it's like that door opens up, then flood of feelings come back in, and you try and get over one rage, and then you got another one because you see someone else, or someone will come up to me and hand me an article about him, and it pisses all over your day. You know, so you got to learn how to let that go and not stuff it, because if you stuff it, you're really going to blow up at some point, or you're going to use, because that's what they taught us around here. If you stuff this shit, you're going to use, because eventually it comes up and it festers, and you don't know what to do with it. You know, and I'm trying, honest to God, you know, I wouldn't be sitting in therapy. The psychiatrist told me I had to walk into a meeting and find a woman that I don't know and can't relate with and make her my sponsor. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. If I can't relate to you and trust you, I will not share with you my intimate feelings. It's not in me, you know. I love my sponsor today. I can relate to her. I can share with her. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do that. And that's what sponsorship is about for me. I'm going through this grieving process. It's got to be the hardest thing I've ever done in 9 years. I'll be real honest. I was 30 days clean and my best friend killed himself, and I did better back then than I am today. I don't know if it's because it's my son, because my significant other, whom I'm going to marry, didn't click with him. They were always fighting, and there was always so much anger and hate in the household, you know. And I could have let my son do just about anything, because I pretty much did let him walk all over me, because I didn't want him out there. I'd rather have him in my home where I knew where he was than to have him out there and not know. So I took a lot of abuse from him, hanging at my house, partying, just not working, not going to school. He was dating some girl, and she was 15 and he was 18, and they want him for rape, even though it was sexual and it was consenting, and it went on for months, and both parents knew about the relationship. Bottom line is, my kid's looking at 3 to 5 over a piece of ass, and it don't seem like our system works like that, but it does. I'm here to tell you it does. And I would stand behind the law if it was something that I believed in, that Brandon did, such as armed robbery or that nature. But when you talk something about 2 consenting people that got together, and now he's looking at 3 to 5, now he's left state, the FBI is in on it, his whole life is just really messed up. And I just pray every day he calls, you know. I really do. I know that there are 7 steps to the grieving process. If you look in any of Ernie Larson's books, who is a very excellent recovering writer, he publishes a lot of work for people in addiction on relationships, recovery, grieving, and everything. And there's 7 steps, and I know I'm stuck in a step right now. I'm angry, you know. I see a cop, and this is new for me. I flip him off, and it's like, I just get so much anger. It's like, you know, fuck, I don't even want to, I can't even go there. And the police that are after my son, it's not just one city, it's like 3 cities, and it's really hard, because the minute I think that I'm on my square in my recovery and at my foundation, and I have a good, strong foundation, or I would be using, okay, because I've been going through this for a couple months now. And when I'm off my square, I've been so close to God, you know. And when I'm in church on Sundays, I cry from the beginning of that ceremony to the end, because this shit is touching my heart, and it's touching my soul, and it relates so much. No matter what he's saying up there, somehow it just relates to this grieving process that I'm trying to get through. And I know that God don't give me more than I can handle, but I have a hard time trying to get with that and trying to digest it and swallow it and be with it and know that he won't give me more than I can handle, and he's there, you know. And the other day I had to say, God, you know, are you in my life? Are you there? And it wasn't him that moved from me. It was I that moved from him. And I had to realize that. You know, I moved away from God. He's still there. And it's just by the grace of him that I can get up here and share this experience, because trust me, this is like probably the most vulnerable I've ever been in front of a group of people. And I do open talks all the time. But this is my baby, you know. He's 18. He's out there. And a lot of shit runs through your head. A lot of shit. And they say take and make a positive out of this, and maybe he's out there and he's growing up. You know, maybe he's becoming the person he needs to be. But wherever he is, I just pray that God watches over him, and that one day he reaches out and lets me know he's okay. You know, so I can stop the shit in my head, and know that eventually the long arm of the law will get him, because it gets everybody. That's just the way life works. And maybe he'll find recovery and be on the road to happiness and serenity as we all are. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing. Would anyone like to share on the grieving process? Jump on it.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Cindy.
Thanks for having me here. Boy, this just seems to hit everybody at this time, and this subject keeps coming up. Meeting last night, what was the meeting last night? Let Go and Let God. The meeting before that was Live and Let Live. I'm going, oh my gosh. My kids are, and again, I think it has, when it's your kids, for some reason it seems to be a lot stronger than anything or anyone else that I've gone through anyways. I'm still young, but my ex-husband has moved to South Carolina, and I found out about this in March, and the kids have lived with him for the last 4 years, and he has no program, which is the biggest struggle I have today. No recovery. And when I found out about this, I was 2 days away from going to a women's retreat, which was really good. I had been with these people the year before that, so they knew a lot of my situation and where I was at, so I was able to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of support with that. And that's what I find so helpful with having recovery, is the support that I've had through it all. My ex-husband was wanting to take the kids with him. I have 2 boys, 14 and 11 and a half. And I live about 50 miles away from him now, and that was bad enough. But South Carolina to Indiana is quite a ways. And when I first heard about it, first thing I thought was, you know, I didn't believe it. Because I've heard comments about, you know, Dad's got a job offer in Chicago or, you know, wherever these places were, and nothing's ever come true. So it was just hard for me to believe when I first heard it. And how to deal with the idea of them going and having acceptance of the fact that I can't do anything about it. Legally, I couldn't stop him from taking the kids, or a judge would vote in his favor because he's had the kids for 4 years and there's no abuse or neglect going on. And it took a lot of acceptance to get through the grief, and a lot of crying. Both of you, a couple of people have said that, a lot of tears. And one of the things I think that I've learned from all this is getting closer to my higher power. I've done more praying in the past couple of months than I've done in maybe in a lifetime. I don't know. And the other thing I have learned to accept through all this is that my kids have a higher power and I'm not it. And that's the tough one. And not just having the knowledge, but also accepting that situation. because I keep taking that back, you know. I keep saying, yep, they have their own higher power, and I don't know what his plan is for them, and I just need to accept that that's the way it is. But then I take it back, and I'm going, this shouldn't be happening, you know. They're too little, and I keep hoping that they'll all open their eyes to the situation and see how terrible it is and how wonderful it would be at my house, and and stay in denial of all that, because it's not wonderful. Grief comes in so many different pictures, because a couple of years ago I got married and moved from about 50 miles away from where I was born and raised, and I'd never really lived outside of that area, and started a new job. I had been at my old job for 10 years. In that past year, the kids had gone to live with past couple years, the kids had gone to live with their dad. My dog from 11 years had passed away. My grandmother had passed away, and I didn't deal with any of it when it came, you know, one by one. I didn't realize how I felt about it all. I must have just stuffed it and not realized where I was at, but it all hit. It all hit at once. And through about 2 years of time, or about a year's time, I had gone to a treatment center twice, but I also stayed sober through all that. And again, you know, the suicide attempts, or there was a suicide attempt, which I'm thinking to myself, how can I have been in recovery at that time for 9 years and still be, not want to live? This, you know, what am I doing wrong? You know, I couldn't figure that out. But grief hits when it hits and how it hits, and it doesn't just like the disease doesn't look at who it's hitting. You know, it hits everybody equally and at different paces. And right now I'm still working through the situation with my kids. It's not settled. When I made an attempt to try and work with them on the short time situation with finishing school, my ex-husband took him out of school and got him down to South Carolina before I had a chance to even say goodbye or to see him. And so they've been gone for about 2.5 weeks now, and that's been, fortunately, I've had phone conversations. That's been really good. I'm grateful for that. And but the not knowing, you know, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, and that's always scary to me. And letting go of that, again, is part of the acceptance and the process of it all. So I have been hitting a lot of meetings. I have been talking to a lot of people. I've been making phone calls. Phone calls is something I really struggle with. And lately I have picked up that phone more than I have in the first 9 years of my recovery. And that's a positive thing. I had to get used to, you know, being in front of people or being with people or getting to know people has always been difficult for me. And when I moved to the area I live in now, I had to get used to a new group of recovering people. And, you know, it's okay one-on-one, but when you think, you know, these people have known each other for years and I'm an outsider and I have to figure out how to get that fit in, and that's scary for me. And I've come a long way in the past 2 years, and I think this is one of the reasons, because of all the things I've had to work through. I've needed that, and I've been willing. It's made me willing to reach out. I also have figured out that through all this, I'm learning some of the lessons that I'm getting through all this. You know, the letting go of my kids. I have been so entangled with my kids from day one. It's like I can't live without them, and I'm realizing that I can't continue that way, because I'm losing my own life and my own time of being here and enjoying what's going on around me. So that's a positive learning that I've gotten from this situation. There's a lot of them, you know. There's so many positive things that I can take from all this. And I sit here and say this now, and I sound wonderful. But 2 weeks from now, if I have a different scenario going on, who knows where I'll be? But just for today. I think just for today, I'll be grateful, and I'm going to thank all of you for being here, for listening to me, and for sharing with me. Thanks.
everyone. I'm Mark. I'm an addict. Well, you know, I really, I'm glad to have this opportunity to share, and glad that this workshop's here. I'm going to try to get through this without blubbering all over myself. But when Denise and Johnny were talking, I got filled with quite a lot of emotion back there because of you with your stepmom and Johnny with his grandmother. And I guess I should start by saying for the last 2.5 years, before my mother passed away, we didn't have a speaking relationship. She detached with love because she couldn't handle my lifestyle. You know, it was pretty reckless, and I dealt drugs too. And I got word through my family that she had gotten colon cancer. And she told my brothers and sisters that, you know, before she died, she would talk to me. She'd call me on her, if she was on her deathbed, and say, you know, so she could, I guess, make her peace with me or whatever. And in December, I'm pretty shaky, I'm sorry. In December, I got busted. Not for dealing, but they upped it to a dealing charge. And it was felon in possession of a handgun, possession of marijuana under 30 grams is a felony, and dealing in a Schedule II substance. So there's some pretty heavy-duty charges. And with prior convictions, you know, it's looking pretty bad. And about a month after I got busted, I was still dabbling a little bit with the drugs. But I could, I guess I didn't see it coming until the day I got the call about my mom. And depression had set in. And I got up to go to work one morning and sat on my bed, went to put my shoes on, and just started crying like a baby. So my wife, bless her heart, she's such a support for me. She said, well, why don't we just take the day off and get you to the doctor and see if we can't get you some medication or something and get you straightened out. And I said, okay. So about an hour later, I got calmed down. I got a phone call, and it's from my daughter. And my daughter and I don't have a relationship either. I guess I fucked that all up too, you know. And she informed me that my mother had passed away. Well, I'll tell you, there just wasn't about much more I could take before it just dumped me right over the edge. I just, I went through all those normal feelings, I guess, you know, anger and regret, sorrow. And I just knew that my mom was going to die before I ever got a chance to talk to her. That was my worst fear, was that she was going to pass away and I'd never get a chance to make amends to her, or for her to make amends to me, or whatever had to be done. And I really, really was shoved over the edge. I don't think I ever experienced anything quite like that. And when my daughter called me that morning to tell me that, I hadn't talked to her in probably 9 months, I suppose. And it was because I was using. You know, using alienates us from our families. Keeps us away from the ones we love, you know. And I told her, I said, you know, I don't know why I haven't seen you. I said, the only thing I know is that I started using again. And I'm sorry, you know. Well, at the funeral, you know, she was pretty distant from me, and I've only seen her one other time than that. She was distant from me then too, but she did talk to me. So I'm grieving my mother and the loss of my daughter. But I know today I don't have to use. I don't have to use over that. You know, after my mom died and we buried her, I told my wife, I said, you know, I got to go do something or you're going to find me dead. Bottom line, you're going to find me dead. But I made that conscious effort to know that I didn't want to die, and I had to go get something done about it. So I checked myself into a treatment center, and I was in there 4 days, and I really panicked because I had called, and I was in a treatment center before. It was like 23 days, you know, and that was good for me, for this addict anyways, you know. 4 days wasn't going to do it for me, I didn't think, and I panicked. But, you know, they said most treatment centers don't take you for more than about a week or 10 days, you know. And I thought, oh, man, that's not ever going to work for me. So I went to treatment for 4 days. And they said, well, you know, we're ready to let you out. Are you ready? And I said, well, you know, I'm a little scared. But I think, okay. And I was out 8 days, and I got depressed and suicidal. So I went back in again. And ever since I got out that time, I've been, I got me sponsored, and I started working this program. And, you know, I go to meetings, and I pray every day. And, like one day at a time doesn't work for me, just for today does. So I know just for today, you know, I don't have to use over my mom passing on, because I know she's in a much better place. You know, she had colon cancer, so that couldn't have been anything but painful for her. And my daughter, as far as she is concerned, I think time will tell. I think all in God's time, you know. But I hope to repair that someday. And, well, those are my two grieving issues, at least. And I really want to thank everybody for being here. And this workshop's great. It's really great. I needed this. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Hi, family. I'm an addict. My name is Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy.
I thank God that I'm here today. This is my first time here in Indiana. I don't know how to grieve. That's why I had to come here today. I lost my mother about 10 years ago. I watched her die. At the time I was using. And I felt that guilt because, you know what, I wanted her to die because it was taking up my time for using. I realized that today. It was painful once I did get clean, but I didn't know how to, I still don't know how to grieve over it, you know. When Denise was sharing, I think that was the first time I cried in a long, long time. And I think I'm learning the process now. You know, it's okay to cry. I also lost a real good friend of mine that I knew from when I was about 4 years old. He was about 30 years old. He died of AIDS, and that was painful too, but I still didn't know how to grieve. You know, when I went to the funeral, they asked if anybody wanted to come up and share, and I couldn't do it. I had all these good things I wanted to say and all these good memories, and I just couldn't do nothing. Recently, I went to also a friend of ours from the fellowship, Mike B's funeral. Thank you. And I knew Mike B, but again, I don't know how to grieve. I went there, I paid my respects, and I wanted to get out of there. As I was leaving, I was looking at all the names of the people that were laid out and got devastated from a very, very close friend of mine. The love of my life, I thought. I dated him just before I went into treatment. And I had that reservation. He was always going to come back for me. He was the love of my life, and no matter what I was going to do when he came back into my life, I was going to be there. And I saw his name, and I did not know how to grieve. It was made aware to me that when I grieve, I take my pain and I laugh. And I realized that that day when I left up out of there, I started joking, I started laughing, and I just defocused is what I did. By sitting here through this workshop today, I'm learning it's okay to cry. And I could feel you guys' pain. So I know it's okay for me to feel mine. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Dorothy.
Hi, family. I'm an addict named Bobby. I started writing when I came into the fellowship, you know, but sporadically. A few months I'd write, and then I wouldn't, and I'd write, and I wouldn't. It's like a journal, but it was all scattered in 3 or 4 different books. And my sponsor told me, go back and read what you've written from the beginning to, you know, now, and see if it makes any sense. So I did, and what I picked up from it was, I've never had a friend in my life. I had a partner, 20 years older. He's black, and we're together because of heroin, you know. I realized that. You know, we were together for over 20-some years, and he wasn't a friend. He was somebody, you know, when I look back at it, I never ever had a friend. And so anyway, I had done this job in Los Angeles, and I lost the job because they investigated me and they found out that I had dropped the dirty urine while I was working at this nuclear plant. And I lost the job, and so I came home, and I wasn't going to use, but I was in shock. And the phone rang, and man, I hadn't bathed, I hadn't got out of bed, was wearing the same pajamas, the same ones I wore last night. No, I'm kidding. I was wearing the same pajamas, and I don't want to talk to anybody. And the answering machine, you better answer this phone, damn it, well, I know you're in there. And okay, I answered the phone, and it was Mike B. And he says, I haven't seen you for a couple months. And Mike, I'm going through the home group box, and I seen your name, and I figured I'd give you a call. What's going on? And I told him, I says, I had this fabulous job in Los Angeles, and I lost it because they came up with this thing in my past, and I don't feel like leaving the house. He said, he made me promise to go to the home group, which I didn't go. So the following week, Mike's on the phone again. I'm coming to get you. You're going. You're going. Johnny also. Johnny, you. I'm coming to get you. I said, no, look, I promise this time. They said, well, we'll take your promise, but if you're not here by 7:30, we'll be there by 7:45. So I made sure I was here by 7:30. And that's how I knew Mike B for a number of years, but, that was my first real close contact. And he got diagnosed with lung cancer. And I went to visit him at the hospital, and I said, I'll come back. And I went back a couple days later, and all of a sudden I realized, man, this is a really nice human being. I went back again, and he got out after his first chemo and blah, blah, and I says, Mike, would you be my friend? And he says, yeah, but I'm not going to be here for long. And I says, well, mind if I hang around a little bit? So, I was there every day, every other day, whatever. They fed me, and they were nice to me, and they told me they loved me, and da-da-da. And when I didn't feel good, they said, what's the matter with you? And why aren't you happy? And all this here. And Mike and Tammy B taught me how to love myself. I can say I love you, and I love you. And I can write you a letter saying, I admire you because you do this and that. And I'm right now in my recovery not able to do that. But I admire you for it. Because they always sent flowers. They always wrote notes. They always told people they loved them. They always got up and hugged the newcomer that had a white tag. They did that. They showed me you can do that. And you don't have to use S-H-I-T. You can use the word poo-poo. And you don't have to say something nasty about somebody. You can call them a goofball. You can do those things, and you're still as much of a man as you were when you woke up. And I haven't cried yet. Mike and I went through 14 months, and I was there with his family and his wife and all of his brothers and sisters. And I got to know the whole family, and about the last week, the hospice came in and said, it will be sometime in the next week. And I went in 3 days before I passed away, and I said, it's time, Mike. Because we had talked about, you get that bonding, that male thing, where 50% is about females and 50% is about real business, And we did that thing, and I says, how can you do this, Mike? And he says, I just have to keep in my mind that there is somebody out there worse off than I am. There's somebody out there without arms, without legs, without food, without love, without anything, and I've got all those things. And this is a great disease. It allows you to say goodbye. Last few months before I passed away, I said, this is a lousy disease. We're sitting here and we can't do anything for you. You know. But anyway, about 3 days before I passed away, I walked in and I was alone with him, and he was conscious. And I said, it's time. I talked to your dad. Your dad knows you've gone through so much pain, and now he wants you to go visit your God, you know, go to heaven. He wants that. And don't worry about your wife. There are 100 people in the fellowship that will make sure she will have what she needs. Might not be what she wants, but she'll get what she needs. So, die, Mike. And Good Friday, I seen him at noon, and he passed away at 1:30. First friend I've had in 30 years. He up and died on me. But I'm starting, see, I tear up, but I haven't done that breakdown type grieving. I haven't really, you know, so I had to have this. And my mom told me, she says, hey, I didn't cry for a year and a half when my dad died. And then, because they were Polish, she says, I went to a Polish church and heard people talking in Polish, and I didn't stop crying for a week and a half. So she said it'll come. Thank you for allowing me to share that.
My name is Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
My heart is beating.
Oh boy, as far as grieving, I don't know. I don't want to say it. Right before I came to the fellowship, my daughter got killed. She was 16 years old. And I know I was partially responsible because, you know, if she had been with me, you know, I just figured it wouldn't have happened. She got killed in a car accident. She the only one that got hurt. Everybody else got up and walked away. And so I really didn't, I don't think I really dealt with Kathy's death. And I just kind of threw it out of my mind. And came into the fellowship, was blessed to be able to meet good people and find out I didn't have to use no more. And I met this guy in the fellowship. You know, first relationship, you know, just a normal relationship I'd ever had in my life. Without drugs and all the other things involved, you know. And we got married. Big wedding. Big cruise, Caribbean cruise. 3 months later, after we was married, he got killed in a car accident. And it's like, when he got killed, and Kathy passed out, you know, it's like, oh, it hit me at one time. You know, my husband, my daughter, you know, both in car accident. And my husband was only 32, daughter 16, you know. I said, damn, you know. You say God don't put much on you, too much on you. And, you know, since my husband got killed, I haven't been in a relationship, dated, nothing. And it's been 3 years, you know, since this happened. And a couple months ago, my mother just died. Just died. She wasn't sick. And it's, I just don't know. It's like I live my life in fear that, because I got 3 other children. It's like I live my life just waiting for the next person to die. I just don't know. I don't know how to handle it. That's it. But what have I did in my life? The years I used drugs, I really wasn't that bad of a person. I wasn't wearing those things, just didn't care about nothing, and, I wasn't that kind. And I got a relationship with God who I always have. Even in my addiction, I went to church. I did. I just hate living every day and the phone ring and wondering if it's going to be one of my kids or in the grieving process. I don't even know what the hell that is. I just know. My daughter, I never went to see her. I never been to the graveyard. I never been to the graveyard. I just couldn't go. I just couldn't go. And on the way up here, I've seen Bellevue, and that's where she's buried at. I've never been. A couple times I went to go and I couldn't go in. It's like I deserted her. It's like she's in this cold graveyard by herself. She was such a good child. She really was. Out of all my kids, she was the best one. During my addiction, and when I was going to buy him anything, she'd always say, "Mama, don't buy me nothing. Just get the other kids." She just was like that. Not once. She do it all the time. I remember these people came over and told me, "Sandy, your daughter, she, we try to give her money. She knocks on our door and asks us could she get anything for us, go to the store or whatever, wash the dishes, and she never accept no money, And I would go to her and say, "Kathy, it's all right to give, but you got to be able to receive." And she, "No, Mama, I just like to do this with such a good person." And I just wanted to share that. I just don't know. I don't know how to grieve. I don't know nothing about it. I don't. But it's the fucking grieving process. When you keep on having grief. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Sandy.
Well, we have 15 minutes left. Does anyone else want to share up here?
My name's Scott. I'm an addict.
Scott.
Listen to everyone share. It has me thinking about 3 different losses that have occurred since I got clean. One was a divorce, which I don't know if I'll ever be done with that. The loss of my mom back in March. And I talked to my mother on her birthday in January. It's the first time we had had a conversation or spoken to each other or had any contact since Mother's Day of '96. And I picked up the phone and called her and spent 2 hours on the phone with her. And it was really nice. She had detached from me to take care of herself when I was in active addiction. And I had 2 years clean in January, and it was by then that I made the effort to get back in touch with her. And she told me then that she had breast cancer. And I knew that there was only so much that they were going to be able to do for her, because she had hepatitis way back in the 70s, and the damage to her liver from that, they couldn't do a chemo. And she did not like a doctor with a knife anywhere near her. And she had allowed them to do some surgery, but she was not very aggressive in that. And so the only thing that they were really able to do for her was radiation. And between January, when I talked to her, and on March 18th at 11:30 at night, when I walked in my door and my phone rang, it was my sister, who I hadn't talked to in 5 years, calling to tell me that my mother had taken her own life because she just decided she wasn't going to deal with this. This program showed me how to get clean, and it showed me how to live my life in a responsible adult manner. And it made it possible for me to be able to call a travel agent and put my ass on a plane and go to Houston and deal with what I need to deal with. It also put me in the position to have to deal with making some amends to some family members in the midst of all this, because the Lord knows there's a lot of wreckage in my past. Through it all, it never occurred to me to go get high. I'm sorry. It was real hard to tell her bye. And I don't guess I'm done with that yet either. Every day something occurs in my life. I want to call Mom and tell her what's going on, and I can't. Mike B. was a good friend of mine. And watching him deal with cancer for a year, it was real odd to have two people that were close to me in my life die from a similar disease within a month of each other. My mother may have taken her own life, but she died from cancer. She simply chose to go out in her own way, just like Mike chose to go out in his, and I respect both of those decisions. I don't know if I would be strong enough to make either one of those. I don't know. It's like, what do you do? One of my mother's friends walked up to me at her viewing, and I didn't know who this guy was right off the bat. And he told me his name, and I realized, this is the guy that, when I called my mother in 1987 and said, I can't stop. I I had gone to the peak of using dope and having a good time, and had begun to destroy my life, and didn't know what to do. And as most of us in this room who started using dope when we were 13 or 14 years old, we're still little kids, you know. We were allowing our parents to help us, and so I called Mom. I said, Mom, what do I do to help? And one of her friends was a therapist, and he gave her the name of a person and put me in contact, which eventually led me to this program. This guy came up to me, and he said that after I talked to my mother on the phone, she had called him and told him that a miracle happened, because she didn't know if I would ever get clean. She didn't know if I would survive this. Hell, I didn't know if I'd survive this. You know, I'm not afraid to sit down and cry. I'm not afraid to tell somebody I'm an addict. Sometimes I'm afraid to get out of bed in the morning, though. This program gave me my life back. Without fail, it gave me my life back. And it gave me the ability to feel these emotions and to deal with them in an adult manner. And I'm grateful for that. There's a lot of things that have gone on in my life that I've still yet to come to terms with. You know, what I do is I keep going to meetings, and I keep calling people that are in the program, and I keep telling them when I had a good day and when I had a bad day. And they keep telling me, it's all right, don't use, go to meetings. As long as I do that, I'm okay. Thanks everybody for letting me share.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
I'm Shannon, I'm an addict. I wasn't going to share, I was just going to chair the meeting. When I saw the topic, I immediately thought of everything I've ever had to grieve over. And I could be up here for an hour talking about everything. But the first thing that came to my mind was me grieving my drug. That was a process, because I'm used to that. And I heard an addict share about how they had to go through the grieving process of staying away from that. I had to go through a grieving process to stay away from my father, even though he wasn't around since I was from the age of 6 until, well, I'm 35 now. So he's in another program, and when I first was a teenager, I swore I'd never become an addict, because, you know, he taught me well how not to use drugs, because he did everything I could think of doing, and I used to brag about it. I just thought he was so cool, because he did this, he did heroin, he did everything, you know. And then lo and behold, I ended up in the same program, even though I didn't do the same type of stuff he did. And I got a hold of this program, and I read the basic text, and it talks about how we're supposed to love each other unconditionally, we're supposed to forgive and forget. And so I immediately got in this judging part in it, because I'm thinking, well, if he's working, you know, if he's Mr. Program, he should be loving his kids unconditionally. He should be doing this. He should be doing that. And so I immediately got a resentment. I got, you know, and I thought I was going to have this great bonding experience, because we were both in the program and we were both going to do all this. And now that I look back at it, he only learned what his parents taught him. And if his dad wasn't there, and his dad disowned him, and his dad was never there, he didn't know how to be a dad. My grandfather recently died, and we're the only real grandkids that he had. And he owned this restaurant, and me being a little resentment child, and revengeful. I went to the restaurant about every year to cause all kind of havoc, to remind him he does have some grandchildren. And so when they saw me, the new grandkids or the new stepchildren, they got the business, they got all the prestige, I didn't know the man, so how could I say I loved him? I was just more involved in trying to get money from him. So out of my problem, that's why I didn't get what I wanted. So at the funeral, we walked in, and he didn't have a viewing where you could see the body. There were just pictures of him, And I'd never been to a funeral like that. And I don't deal with grievance. To me, when my grandmother died, she's just on vacation. She's in California, never saw her body, so she's just on vacation somewhere. She'll be back. I don't cry when people die. It's like, well, they're in a better place. Or they're just not there. I'll see them again. So I just put stuff on the shelves so I could really relate to a lot of people. And then once it hits, people deal with grieving different. Some people get high, some people go isolate, some people, their attitudes and behaviors change. I wanted to blame the whole world. I don't know, but since I've been here, there's been more people die since I've been clean than when I was out in the streets. And if the drugs are so bad, how come they weren't dying right and left out there? But that was my mentality I had to get used to. Or I'd wish the other way. I'm like, well, if my dad dies, so what? I don't know him anyway. But so when my grandfather died, I had to call my dad and tell him, because they didn't even tell him. They didn't know us grandchildren existed. And I walked in there with a big attitude and let them know I was his granddaughter. And of course, some of them were real defensive, like, who in the hell is she? I think she'd just come in here and run everything. And the other ones who didn't know we existed or whatever, there were some of them really open and called my dad and told him, and I told him I was going to send him, the obituary or whatever. And I still haven't done it. It's still sitting in my living room. That's been 4 months ago. But listen to everybody. It's like I have some doors I have to close. I have to get some kind of acceptance with my dad and our relationship, whatever you want to call it. I can't keep judging his recovery compared to what I think mine should be and what his should be. I have to accept him for who he is. If that's how he deals with people, I have to accept him. I don't know. I think the grieving process has to do with a lot of acceptance and faith that they're going to be okay wherever they are. And some of us don't believe in God. Everybody's got their own higher power, whatever they choose it to be. I just have to believe that my higher power is watching over. And I've got a few angels watching over me. The people who have passed, even the ones in recovery. And hope that when I do pass, because I know I'm going to leave sooner or later, that I'll just die clean, not pass.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John.
Do we have time for one more? Okay. I'm supposed to end this on time, so we need to close this meeting with a group hug and a serenity prayer.